If there's one thing that scrambles your mind, steals your mental clarity, and blocks prosperity from entering your life, it's a disorganized home. Because the chaos around you doesn't stay in your walls, your furniture, or the things left out of place. It enters your mind. It weighs on your body. It confuses your decisions. It drains your energy without you even noticing. Most people think clutter is just a visual problem. It's not. Clutter is distraction. Clutter is excess. Clutter is mental noise. And where there is too much noise, clarity cannot survive. Where there is no clarity, there is no direction. And where there is no direction, prosperity has no place to grow. You might try to think big. You might want to change your life. You might pray, visualize, make plans. But if the environment you live in every single day communicates disorder, delay, accumulation, and neglect, your mind starts to follow that exact pattern. And that's why so many people feel stuck without understanding why. It's not a lack of potential. It's not a lack of desire. Many times, it's the environment training the mind to remain in confusion. Napoleon Hill taught that success is the result of simple disciplines practiced day after day. And that doesn't apply only to money, business, or goals. It also applies to the place you live in, because your home is not just where you sleep. It's the space that speaks to your mind every single day. And the question is, what has that environment been telling you? In silence, that your life is under control? Or that everything is piling up? That there is peace? Or that there is pressure? In this video, you'll understand why a disorganized home may be sabotaging your energy, your discipline, your mental clarity, and even the flow of prosperity in your life. And more than that, you'll learn simple but powerful habits that restore order on the outside so clarity can return on the inside. Because at the end of the day, prosperity does not grow well in chaos. Prosperity grows where there is order, intention, and space. Before we go further, I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. If this message resonates with you, write this in the comments. I take control of my environment. Because the moment you declare that, you stop reacting to chaos and start commanding your life. And if you want more content like this content that reprograms your mind and elevates your standards every single day, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now pay close attention, because what you're about to understand next can completely change the way you live every single day. Most people don't lose control of their lives all at once. They lose it slowly, quietly, in small, invisible ways. It starts with things that seem insignificant. A chair with clothes that were supposed to be folded. A sink with dishes that were supposed to be washed. A table with objects that were supposed to be put away. Nothing dramatic. Nothing urgent. Nothing that feels like it matters. But here's what most people don't realize. Your life is not shaped by what feels important. It's shaped by what you allow to accumulate. Because accumulation is silent, and what accumulates eventually controls you. Pay attention to this, because this is where almost everyone fails without noticing. You don't wake up one day completely overwhelmed for no reason. You wake up overwhelmed because for days, weeks, sometimes months, you've been allowing small things to remain unresolved. And every unresolved thing takes up space. Not just physical space, mental space, emotional space, decision space. That's why you feel tired, even when you haven't done anything physically exhausting. Because your mind is carrying weight that your hands never dealt with. Napoleon Hill made this clear in a very simple but powerful way. He said that success is not built on big, heroic actions. It is built on small disciplines repeated daily. But here's the part most people ignore. The same rule applies in reverse. Failure, confusion, stagnation. They are also built on small daily neglect. Not doing what needs to be done. Postponing what should be immediate. Ignoring what seems too small to matter. And over time, Those small moments of neglect begin to form a pattern of delay, a pattern of avoidance, a pattern of disorder. And eventually, that pattern becomes your lifestyle. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever looked around your space and felt a strange kind of pressure, even when nothing serious was happening? That quiet discomfort, that subtle weight, that feeling that something is off, that is not random. That is your environment speaking to your nervous system, because your brain is constantly scanning your surroundings. And when it sees disorder, unfinished tasks, visual clutter, it interprets that as lack of control. And when the brain perceives lack of control, it does something very specific. It lowers your energy. It reduces your focus. It increases your resistance to action. That's why you look at something simple and feel like it's too much. Not because it is, but because your system is already overloaded. This is not about laziness. This is about internal overload caused by external disorder. And here's where it gets deeper. Because this is not just psychological. It is also spiritual. In Romans 12:2, it says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Most people interpret this only as thoughts, but the truth is, your mind is not renewed only by what you think. It is renewed by what you repeat, by what you tolerate, by what surrounds you daily. Because repetition creates identity. An environment reinforces repetition. If your environment is disorganized, your mind begins to normalize disorder. If your environment is delayed, your mind begins to normalize procrastination. If your environment is neglected, your mind begins to normalize neglect. And then you start asking yourself, why can't I stay consistent? Why can't I focus? Why do I feel stuck? But the real question is, what are you exposing your mind to every single day? Because your environment is not neutral. It is either training you or draining you. There is no middle ground. Now understand this clearly. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. And your standards are revealed in the way you handle small things, not big opportunities, not important meetings, not moments of pressure, small things. What you do after you eat, what you do when you wake up, what you do when you finish using something, what you do when no one is watching. That is where your real life is being built or slowly destroyed. And this is exactly where Napoleon Hill's philosophy becomes practical, because he didn't just talk about desire. He talked about organized effort. He talked about discipline. He talked about directing your mind with intention. And you cannot direct a disorganized mind. You cannot sustain focus in a chaotic environment. You cannot build prosperity on top of inconsistency. Prosperity requires structure. It requires repetition. It requires alignment between what you think, what you do, and what surrounds you. Now, here's the shift. And this is important. You don't need a complete life reset. You don't need a perfect system. You don't need more time. You need control over what is already in front of you. Because control is not built in big decisions. It is built in immediate action, handling what is right there, right now, without delay, without negotiation, without waiting for motivation, because motivation comes after movement, not before. And this is where everything begins to change. When you stop waiting and start responding. When you stop postponing and start finishing. When you stop ignoring and start resolving. That's when your mind starts to shift. That's when your energy begins to return. That's when clarity starts to rebuild itself. Not because something magical happened, but because you removed the noise. You removed the excess. You removed the weight. And what remains is space. And in that space, focus can exist again. Discipline can exist again. Direction can exist again. So before we go into the first habit, understand this. This is not about cleaning your house. This is about reclaiming control. This is about removing what is silently draining you. This is about creating an environment that supports the person you are trying to become. Because if your environment contradicts your goals will always lose. Now stay with me. Because what you're about to see next is where everything begins to shift in a practical way. The first habit may look simple, almost too simple, but don't underestimate it, because this is where control begins. Habit 1, the first win of the day. Now pay close attention, because everything starts here, not in your goals, not in your plans, but in the first few minutes of your day. Before distractions begin, before the world reaches you, there is a small moment. And in that moment, you either take control or you lose it. Most people lose it without noticing. They wake up, check their phone, delay getting up, move without direction. And just like that, the day begins in reaction, not in control. And when your day starts like that, your mind follows the same pattern. Slow, unfocused, unclear. Now here's the shift. Control is built immediately, not later, not when you feel ready. Right after you wake up, the habit is simple. Make your bed immediately. No delay, no thinking. You get up, you fix your bed, you complete your first task. And this is not about cleaning. It's about signaling. You are telling your mind, I'm in control, and your brain responds to that. It registers action. It registers completion. It creates momentum. Napoleon Hill taught that success comes from simple disciplines repeated daily. This is one of them. Small, simple, but powerful. Because your brain is always collecting evidence of who you are. And when you complete something early, it builds a pattern. I finish what I start. But when you delay, it builds another pattern. I postpone, and that becomes your default. Now understand this. Discipline is not doing hard things. It is doing simple things without negotiation. And the first negotiation of your day happens when you wake up. Just a few more minutes. I'll do it later. But every time you accept that, you weaken your control. And every time you act immediately, you strengthen it. Now, here's the key. It doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need a perfect bed. You just need completion. 2 minutes, that's enough. Because the power is not in the task. It's in the identity you reinforce. Over time, this starts to change everything. You act faster. You delay less. You tolerate less disorder. Your standards rise, not by force, but by repetition. And there's something else. When you come back at the end of the day and your space is in order, your mind relaxes because your environment supports you, not drains you. Now most people ignore this habit because it seems too simple, but that's exactly why it works. Because success is not built on complexity. It is built on consistency. So starting tomorrow, do this. Wake up. Make your bed immediately. No delay. Do it for 7 days. And watch what happens. Because when you win the first moment of your day, you stop reacting and start leading. And everything begins from there. Habit 2. Don't let IT accumulate. Now pay attention. Because this is where most people lose everything they just started building. Not because they stop completely, but because they allow small things to pile up. At first, it doesn't seem like a problem. It's just one thing, one task. I'll do it later. And that's how accumulation begins. Quiet, harmless, almost invisible. But nothing that accumulates stays small. Everything that accumulates grows. And what grows eventually demands more energy than it should. This is where your mental clarity starts to break. Not because of big problems, but because of small things left unresolved. Now understand this. Every unfinished action creates an open loop in your mind. And your brain doesn't ignore open loops. It keeps them active. In the background, taking up space, draining attention. That's why you feel tired even when you didn't do much, because mentally, you started many things and finished none. Napoleon Hill taught that success is built through organized, consistent action. But disorganization follows the same rule. It is built through repeated neglect, small delays, repeated daily. Now here's the shift. Stop delaying what is in front of you. Handle it immediately. You use something, put it back. You finish eating, clean it. You start something, finish it. No delay. No later. Because the moment you postpone, you create weight. And weight accumulates. Now here's something important. Speed reduces resistance. The faster you act, the lighter the task feels. The longer you delay, the heavier it becomes. So the goal is not to do more. The goal is to delay less. Now make this practical. Adopt a simple rule. If it takes less than 5 minutes, do it immediately. Don't schedule it. Don't think about it. Just act. Because those small actions are the ones that create overload when ignored. Now watch what starts to happen when you apply this. Your space stays stable. Your mind stays clear. Your actions become faster. Your resistance decreases because there is nothing piling up behind you. And this changes your identity. You stop being someone who postpones, and you become someone who resolves. And that shift is powerful. Because prosperity does not grow in accumulation. It grows in movement, in flow, in completion. Now stay with me. Because this is where things go deeper. You can act immediately. You can stop accumulation. You can stay disciplined. But if your environment is working against you, you will still feel resistance. The next habit is where your surroundings either support your growth or silently sabotage it. And if you ignore this, you will always feel like something is holding you back. Habit 3. Your environment shapes your behavior. Now pay close attention. Because this is where most people get stuck without understanding why. You can be disciplined. You can take action. You can try to stay consistent. But if your environment is working against you, you will always feel resistance. Not visible resistance. Invisible resistance. The kind that drains your energy before you even start. Because your environment is not neutral, it is always influencing you. Every space you walk into, every object you see, every sound around you is sending signals to your mind, and your brain responds automatically, faster than your intentions. That's why you can walk into a clean space and instantly feel lighter, more focused, more in control, and then walk into a cluttered space and feel distracted, heavy, unmotivated. That's not emotion. That's conditioning. Your brain is reacting to what it sees. Now, here's the problem. Most people try to change their habits without changing their environment, and that creates friction because you are trying to move forward in a space that is pulling you back. Now understand this clearly. You don't rise to your intentions. You fall to your environment. If your environment encourages distraction, you will be distracted. If your environment encourages delay, you will delay. If your environment is disorganized, your actions will reflect that. Now let's go deeper. Because environment is not just physical, it's also what you consume, what you hear, who you spend time with, the conversations you tolerate. Because all of that shapes your thinking. Napoleon Hill spoke about the power of association, the people around you, the influences you accept, because your mind adapts to repetition. So if you are constantly exposed to negativity, complaints, fear, limitation, your mind begins to normalize that. It becomes your default state. Now here's the shift. You don't always need to change everything at once, but you need to become intentional. Intentional about what you allow. intentional about what you expose your mind to, intentional about what you normalize, because what you normalize, you eventually become. Now make this practical. Look at your environment. Does it support focus or distraction? Does it make action easier or harder? Then look at your inputs. What are you listening to daily? What kind of content are you consuming? Because all of that is shaping your internal state. Now, here's something powerful. If you can't fully change your external environment yet, start building your internal one. Feed your mind with better inputs, better ideas, better messages, because your internal environment can begin to reshape your external reality over time. Now understand this. Growth requires alignment. Your environment needs to support your direction, even in small ways. A cleaner space, less noise, better inputs, more intention, and those small adjustments reduce resistance, without force, without struggle, because now your environment is helping you, not fighting you. Now stay with me, because this is where things become even more internal. You can control your environment. You can reduce external noise, but there is something even more subtle, something that doesn't come from outside, something that builds inside your mind, quietly, constantly. And if you don't deal with it, it will sabotage everything. The next habit is about clearing what most people never touch, your internal clutter, your thoughts. And without that, no external order will ever be enough. Habit 4, clear your mental clutter. Now stay with me, because this is where most people lose control without even noticing. You can organize your space. You can control your environment. You can act with discipline, but if your mind is cluttered, nothing stays in order for long, because external order cannot survive internal chaos. And this is where the real problem begins. Mental clutter is invisible. You don't see it, but you feel it. In overthinking, in hesitation, in that constant noise in the background, thought after thought, without direction. Now think about this. Have you ever tried to focus, but your mind kept jumping? Replaying situations, imagining problems, creating scenarios that don't even exist. That's mental clutter. And most people don't deal with it. They just live with it. They think it's normal, but it's not. It's accumulated thought, unprocessed, unreleased. Now, here's the truth. Your mind is not designed to store everything. It is designed to process and release. But when you don't process, you store. And what you store starts to control you, quietly. Now understand this clearly. Not every thought is useful. Not every thought is true. Not every thought deserves your attention. But most people don't filter their thoughts. They accept everything. They repeat everything. And that creates internal overload. Now here's the shift. You don't need to control every thought. You need to control what stays. Observe your thoughts. Question them. Ask, is this useful? Is this helping me move forward? If the answer is no, let it go. Don't hold it. Don't repeat it. Because what you repeat grows. Now make this practical. Every day, take a few minutes. No phone, no noise, no distraction. Just pause. Observe your mind. What's repeating? What's unresolved? And instead of carrying it, release it. Write it down. Reflect. Let it go. Because clarity is not created by adding more. It is created by removing what doesn't belong. Now here's what starts to happen. Your mind becomes lighter. Your decisions become faster. Your focus becomes stronger. Because there is no internal noise competing for attention. Now understand this. You can have a perfectly organized life on the outside. But if your mind is full of fear, doubt, negativity, you will still feel stuck. Because the real environment is internal. Now here's the truth most people avoid. Mental clutter is not removed by distraction. It is removed by awareness, by silence, by intentional release. And yes, silence is uncomfortable because it reveals what is inside. But it is also where clarity is built. So starting today, create a small moment of mental reset. Even 5 minutes is enough. Sit, observe, release. Do it daily, because just like your space, your mind needs maintenance. Now stay with me, because this is where things shift again. You can clear your mind. You can reduce internal noise. But if you keep too much in your life, too many things, too many distractions, the clutter always returns. The next habit is about removing what is unnecessary, because what you keep is shaping what you become. And if you don't eliminate the excess, it will slowly eliminate your clarity. Habit 5, eliminate excess. Now pay close attention, because this is where many people get stuck. Even when they are doing everything right, you can organize your space. You can act with discipline. You can clear your mind. But if you keep too much, the clutter always comes back. Because the problem is not just disorder. The problem is excess. And excess silently destroys clarity. Now think about this. Look around your space. How many things are there that you don't actually use? Objects you haven't touched in months. Things you keep just in case. Items that no longer serve a real purpose. And yet, they are still there, taking up space. Now, here's the truth. Everything you keep has a cost. Not always physical, but mental. Every unnecessary item creates visual noise, and your brain has to process that noise, even if you don't notice it consciously. That's why clutter feels heavy, not because of what it is, but because of what it represents. Unfinished decisions, unnecessary weight. Now here's the shift. Clarity is not created by adding more. It is created by removing what doesn't belong. Napoleon Hill spoke about organized effort, but organization is not just arranging things. It is eliminating what is not essential. Now make this practical. Start simple. Every day, remove something. One item. Something you don't use. Something that clearly has no function anymore. And remove it immediately. Don't move it. Don't store it. Remove it. Because if you keep moving things around, nothing really changes. Now here's what starts to happen. Your space becomes lighter. Your mind becomes clearer. Your focus improves. Because there is less noise, less distraction, less pressure. Now let's go deeper. Because excess is not just physical. It's also digital. Too many apps. Too many notifications. Too much information. Too much input. And your mind is constantly consuming, constantly reacting, constantly overloaded. Now ask yourself, what are you consuming daily? Is it helping you grow, or just filling your mind? Because everything you consume shapes your internal state. Now here's something important. Excess is also emotional. Holding on to past situations, old frustrations, unresolved feelings. And all of that takes space, mental space, emotional energy. And if you don't release it, it stays, and it weighs on you. Now understand this clearly. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is making space. Space for clarity, space for focus, space for growth. Now make this your standard. Ask yourself, does this serve who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, remove it. Without delay, without attachment, because what you keep is shaping your identity. Now here's what begins to change. You become more intentional, more selective, more focused. Because your life is no longer full of excess, it becomes aligned. Now stay with me, because this is where everything becomes more precise. You can remove excess. You can create space. But if things don't have a defined place, disorder slowly returns, not because you failed, but because there is no system. The next habit is what transforms effort into structure. It removes decision fatigue, and once you apply it, your life becomes easier to manage because things stop depending on your memory and start following a system. Habit 6. Everything has its place. Now pay close attention, because this is where most people lose control again. Even after cleaning, even after organizing, even after removing excess, things slowly start going back to chaos. Not because you stopped trying, but because there is no system. And without a system, everything depends on memory, on effort, on willpower, and that's not sustainable. Now understand this clearly. Most disorganization is not caused by dirt. It is caused by things being out of place. A charger on the table, shoes in the hallway, clothes on a chair, objects scattered, and each one of these seems small. But together, they create visual chaos. And your brain reacts to that. It sees disorder. It feels lack of control. And it drains your focus. Now here's the shift. Every single thing in your life needs a defined place. Not just a temporary place. A fixed place. A clear place. A consistent place. Because when everything has a place, you remove decision-making. You don't think. You don't hesitate. You just act. Use it. Return it. Simple. Now here's something powerful. Decision fatigue is real. Every small decision you make consumes energy. And when your environment is disorganized, you are constantly making unnecessary decisions. Where do I put this? Where is that? I'll deal with it later. And that creates mental exhaustion. But when everything has a place, you eliminate those decisions, and your mind becomes lighter, faster, more efficient. Now connect this with something deeper. Napoleon Hill spoke about organized planning, and this is exactly that. You are creating structure. You are creating order. You are creating a system that supports your behavior. Instead of relying on motivation, now make this practical. Look at your environment. Pick one area and define a place for everything, not random, intentional. Then create a rule. If something is out of place, you return it immediately. No delay, no exceptions, because the moment you allow just this once, the pattern breaks and chaos begins again. Now here's what starts to happen. Your space maintains itself. Your effort decreases. Your mind relaxes. Because everything is where it should be. Now understand this. Organization is not about cleaning after chaos. It is about preventing chaos. And this is how you do it. Now here's the deeper level. When your external environment is structured, your internal environment follows. Your thoughts become more organized. Your actions become more intentional. Your life becomes more aligned. Because structure removes friction. Now stay with me. Because this is where most people make another mistake. You can have structure. You can have systems. You can keep things in place. But if you allow things to reach the limit, if you wait until it's too much, you lose control again. The next habit is about acting before things overflow, before pressure builds, before chaos returns. And this is what keeps your life stable, instead of constantly restarting. Habit 7. Don't let IT overflow. Now pay close attention, because this is where many people lose control again. Even when everything seems organized, they clean, they organize, they create systems, but they wait too long to act. They wait until things are full, until things are too much, until things become urgent. And that's where the problem begins, because overflow is what turns order into chaos. Now think about this. A trash bin. It's fine when it's half full, still manageable, still controlled. But when it overflows, it spreads. It smells. It creates discomfort. And suddenly, everything feels worse. Now understand this. This doesn't just apply to physical things. It applies to your life, stress, tasks, emotions, responsibilities. When you let things reach the limit, you lose control. And once things overflow, they demand much more energy to fix. Now here's the shift. Don't wait for overflow. Act before it happens. Before things become heavy. Before things become urgent. Because prevention is always easier than correction. Now make this practical. Look for signs, small signs, a space getting full, a task being delayed, a responsibility building up. That's your signal. Act immediately. Don't wait, don't postpone, because when you act early, you stay in control. When you act late, you react. Now here's something important. Most people don't act early because nothing feels urgent yet. And that's the trap. They only move when pressure appears. But by then, the effort is much greater. The stress is higher. The resistance is stronger. Now understand this clearly. Control is not about reacting well. It is about acting early. That's what keeps your life stable. That's what keeps your environment light. That's what protects your energy. Now connect this with discipline. Discipline is not intensity. It is timing. Doing things when they should be done, not when you feel forced to do them. Now here's what begins to happen when you apply this. Your life becomes smoother, more predictable, less stressful, because nothing reaches the breaking point. Nothing becomes overwhelming. Everything stays under control. Now think about this. How many times have you felt overwhelmed? Not because of one big thing, but because too many small things built up? That's overflow. And it happens slowly, until one day it feels like too much. Now imagine the opposite. Nothing piling up, nothing reaching the limit. Everything handled early. That creates peace. That creates clarity. That creates control. Now make this your standard. Don't wait for problems to grow. Handle them while they are still small, because small actions, done at the right time, prevent big problems later. Now stay with me, because this is where things become even more practical. You can act early. You can prevent overflow. You can maintain control. But there is one area where people lose control very easily, and it spreads fast: clothes, accumulation, delay. And once that cycle starts, it quickly takes over your environment. The next habit is about breaking that cycle before it grows. And if you ignore it, your space will slowly return to chaos, no matter how disciplined you are. Habit 8. Handle things at the right time. Now pay close attention, because this is where many people slowly lose control, without realizing it, not because they don't act, but because they act at the wrong time. They delay what should be immediate, and they try to fix later what should have been handled in the moment. And this creates accumulation, not because of laziness, but because of timing. Now think about this. There are things in your day that have the right moment to be done. A natural moment, an easy moment, a moment where the effort is small, but when you miss that moment, the effort grows, the resistance grows, and the task becomes heavier than it should be. Now here's the truth. Most problems are not difficult. They become difficult because they were delayed. Now let's make this clear. Cleaning something right after using it is easy. Cleaning later, after it builds up, is hard. Putting something away immediately is simple. Dealing with it later, when everything is out of place, is stressful. Now understand this. The right time reduces effort. The wrong time increases resistance. And most people ignore this. They say, I'll do it later. But later has a cost, because later requires more energy, more time, more effort. Now here's the shift. Start respecting the moment. Do things when they should be done, not when it becomes a problem. Because when you act at the right time, Life becomes lighter. Now, here's something important. Timing is a form of discipline. Not doing more, but doing things at the correct moment. And when you build this habit, everything becomes easier. Now make this practical. Pay attention to your day. Look for moments where action is easy, and take advantage of them. Don't delay, because those small delays are what create future stress. Now here's what starts to happen. Your tasks become lighter. Your routine becomes smoother. Your energy stays stable, because nothing builds up unnecessarily. Now understand this clearly. Your life doesn't become heavy because it is hard. It becomes heavy because things are done at the wrong time. Now here's the deeper level. When you act at the right time, you build flow. You move from one action to another, without resistance, without interruption, without overload. And that's where productivity becomes natural, not forced. Now think about this. How many times have you felt overwhelmed? Just because things were delayed? Things that could have been simple, but became complicated. That's not difficulty. That's poor timing. Now make this your standard. Do things when they are easy, not when they become urgent, because urgency is expensive. It costs energy. It costs clarity. It costs control. Now stay with me, because this is where everything becomes even more stable. You can act at the right time. You can avoid accumulation. You can maintain flow. But if you don't close your day properly, your mind stays open, carrying unfinished weight into the next day. The next habit is what gives your mind closure. And without it, you wake up already feeling behind. Habit 9. Close your day properly. Now pay close attention, because this is where most people lose control. Before the next day even begins, they go through the day, they do things, they react. They move from one task to another, and then they stop. They go to sleep, without closure, without clarity, without resetting their mind. And what happens? They wake up already feeling behind. Now understand this clearly. Your day doesn't end when you stop moving. Your day ends when your mind closes the cycle, and most people never do that. They carry unfinished thoughts, unresolved tasks, mental noise, from one day into the next, and over time, that builds pressure. Now, here's the shift. You need to close your day intentionally, not perfectly, but consciously. Before you sleep, take a few minutes and review your day. What did you complete? What is still open? What needs to be handled tomorrow? Not to create stress, but to create clarity, because clarity removes anxiety. Now here's something powerful. Your brain seeks closure. It wants resolution. And when you don't give it that, it keeps things active, even while you sleep. That's why you wake up tired sometimes, not because of lack of rest, but because your mind never stopped working. Now think about this. When everything feels open, your mind feels heavy. When things are defined, your mind relaxes. So this habit is simple. At the end of your day, define your state. Close what you can, acknowledge what remains, and decide what comes next. Now here's what starts to happen. You wake up lighter, more focused, more in control, because your mind is not carrying yesterday. Now connect this with discipline. Discipline is not just how you start your day. It's how you finish it, because how you finish determines how you begin again. Now make this practical. Before you sleep, ask yourself 3 simple questions. What did I complete today? What is still open? What is the first thing I will do tomorrow? That's it. Simple, clear, effective. Now here's the deeper level. This habit builds trust. Trust in yourself. Because you stop leaving things undefined. You stop drifting. You start directing. And that changes your identity. Now understand this. A disorganized mind carries yesterday into today. An organized mind resets every day, and that reset is what creates consistency. Now stay with me, because this is where everything comes together. You can start your day strong. You can act with discipline. You can maintain your environment. You can clear your mind. You can remove excess. You can act at the right time. You can close your day properly. But there is one final piece. That determines whether you continue or stop. Because most people never recognize their progress. And without that, they lose motivation. They lose direction. They stop. The next habit is what keeps you moving forward. It's what reinforces your identity. And without it, everything you've built can slowly fade. Habit 10. Recognize your progress. Now pay close attention, because this is where most people stop. Not because they failed, not because they didn't try, but because they never recognized that they were moving forward. And when you don't recognize progress, your mind assumes there is none. Now think about this. You start making changes. You act with discipline. You organize your space. You improve your habits. But what do you focus on? What's missing? What's not done? What still needs to change? And that creates a constant feeling of insufficiency. Like you're always behind. Like it's never enough. And over time, that drains your motivation. Now, here's the truth. Your mind moves in the direction of what you reinforce. If you reinforce failure, you feel stuck. If you reinforce progress, you keep going. This is exactly what Napoleon Hill understood. The mind responds to repetition, to focus, to what you give attention to consistently. Now, here's the shift. You need to recognize what you're doing right every day. Not to celebrate small things in an exaggerated way, but to acknowledge movement, because movement creates momentum. Now make this practical. At the end of your day, take a moment and identify what you did well. Not everything, just something. A habit you followed, a task you completed, a decision you handled correctly. And acknowledge it, because that reinforces identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who acts, someone who improves, someone who follows through. And that changes everything. Now, here's something important. Most people wait to feel motivated before they continue, but motivation doesn't come first. Recognition creates motivation. When you see progress, you want to continue. When you ignore progress, you lose energy. Now understand this clearly. You don't build confidence by thinking. You build confidence by recognizing your own actions and repeating them. Now connect this with something deeper. In Matthew 25-29, it says, "To those who have, more will be given." This is not just about material things. It's about mindset. When you recognize what you have, you create more of it. When you ignore it, you feel like you have nothing. Now here's the final shift. Stop focusing only on what's missing. Start reinforcing what's working, because what you reinforce expands, and that's how you sustain change. Now here's what begins to happen. You stay consistent. You stay motivated. You stay aligned, because you are no longer chasing perfection. You are building progress. And that is what creates real transformation. Now, understand this. This is not about doing everything perfectly. This is about doing the right things consistently, day after day. Small actions repeated. That's how your life changes. Not suddenly, but steadily. Now stay with me, because this is where everything comes together. You don't need a new life. You don't need a perfect system. You don't need more time. You need new standards, daily standards, because your life is not built in big moments. It is built in what you do every single day.